Welcome to creating a level playing field for collaboration. How can we make a difference together in equity and mutuality instead of inviting people to participate in a project they do not own? In this series, we discover what works by sharing stories of lived experience from a diversity of wise guests, organizers, participants, facilitators, researchers of participatory projects. By sharing examples and insights, we want to contribute to co-creating a world that works for all. Today we welcome Harold Shinsato in our podcast series on creating a level playing field for collaboration. Welcome, Harold. We met recently in Istanbul at the World Open Space on Open Space. But maybe you could introduce yourself a little bit more.
Thank you, Tony. It's a great honor to be invited into this conversation. The people that you have interviewed in the past, I have known of for quite some time because they are very important in the community of people who have come together for decades to open space. Open space is maybe not necessarily something everyone that's listening to this understands what that means. But if they've listened to the conversations that you've had so far, they will get a sense of the power and the potency of these ideas that are philosophical as well as practical and almost formulaic to, in many ways, grant access to our own gifts and to those around us. I guess I learned about it first in 2007. And in 2010, I joined the Open Space Institute. So our work in Istanbul together, the conference was the World Open Space and Open Space. And these events happen every year since the 90s. And we, the Open Space Institute, sponsored that event. And that's in many ways my badge, if you will, of how I am on this particular podcast with you. How I got there is a long story, but just in quick summary, I had the good fortune to go to a top technical university, MIT, and that put me in the space of some of the most interesting technological developments in the computer software industry through Xerox's Palo Alto Research Center. And as a result of that, I got exposure to a lot of the insanity of the high-tech world in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco Bay Area. And I wondered what the heck is going on. And I came to more and more clarity as a computer programmer that it's not the technical aspect, it's the people. That's the issue. When I learned about open space technology, which is very much about people, not really what people think of as technology, was just so profound and so impactful and so much of where I wanted to make my whole life about. So that's, well, when I went to that in 2007, I got to meet what I consider still the top trainer in open space technology, Lisa Heft. She's retired at this point. I would consider she was the top trainer at the time. And I learned about open space technology for the first time. And she showed me pictures of like thousands of people coming together in circles to do this kind of work. And I need to mention this because that I think might be where it started hitting a bell, but ringing a bell for me of recognition. But this bell for me is related to something that I have deep passion for. It's the reason I am in Montana. It's how I met my wife, who I lost in April, was something called the Rainbow Gathering. And the Rainbow Gathering is an event that began in about 1971. Everyone knows about the hippies and Woodstock and the Summer of Love in Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, and then how much that was connected to all the Vietnam War protests. And some of those got kind of violent. Um, there were the Black Panthers and just all that kind of stuff. Very, very turbulent time in American history. Kind of, we're in turbulent times in America right now. But a lot of people are just not aware that there was a kind of division. So there were people that wanted to protest the war and be against war, and then there were people that wanted to come together to pray for peace. And this was the Rainbow Gathering. At its peak, these events had like 25,000 people coming. They were completely self-organized. They were very much had circles as the center of peace. They were deeply steeped in indigenous wisdom. Open space technology comes from the wisdom that Harrison Owen saw when he was in the Peace Corps in Africa, that people came together in circles to solve problems. Well, there were enormous circles in these rainbow gatherings, and there was no formal leadership, and they would come together and people would camp in the American national parks, which America's Declaration of Independence and Constitution, the Bill of Rights, they make a legal law of what we call freedom of assembly. So they employed that right to meet in these national forests. The energy in these rainbow gatherings that were self-organizing with breakouts everywhere, just like in open space, breakouts. Boy, when I went to my first rainbow gathering in 1996, I was just like, wow, this is incredible. There's no one in charge. Everyone's getting fed. Everyone's getting taken care of. The land is being cared for, and no one's in charge formally. It was just so profound. And when I started doing my first open spaces, I felt that same energy, that same feeling, the same freedom, that same joy, that same personal path of learning and growth and struggle and difficulties, and how your own fire gets to be encouraged to grow stronger so that you can move through every particular issue or obstacle, not being directed by someone else. It was something that just lit me up. Anyway, it's like everyone was getting along, everyone was coming together, all these different faiths and religions, and it was I'd heard about the Baha'i faith back in the 80s when I met a girl that I completely went head over heels for, but I was an agnostic. I didn't believe in God at the time. Um, anyway, we believe as Baha'is that work is worship, and I wanted this to be my work is worship, and I have been endeavoring to bring that into the technical space, and I've been on the board for the Open Space Institute since 2010, and that's why you're interviewing me now in many ways. It's because of the Rainbow Gathering, because I went to Istanbul, and it was such an amazing experience, and I felt that many of the obstacles that have been getting in the way of open space having the impact that it could, I saw dissolving in Istanbul. The profound impact that is being called forward to enable that level playing field.
What obstacles did you notice before that were resolved somehow?
Open space technology is a structure that's you can practice it, and then you start getting that experience. The experience, the philosophy of open space is the gem, it's the jewel, not really the formal methodology of open space technology, right? But Harrison Owen is a human being, and he had flaws, and so do I, and so do all the people that brought that forward. And there were human conflicts. And what I'd say is what I saw in Istanbul happening was the indigenous, the native wisdom of the people in Turkey getting it and lighting the people of Turkey on fire with the value and the promise and the power of open space technology. and a lot less of this is the right way. Yeah. I would try to move something forward and in an open space, especially the ones that we did with him in the Open Space Institute, in International House, the opening space for peace and high performance. And he would pull the rug out from under me. And I'm like, ah. It's because there were so many things in my journey that I wasn't really understanding, even though I so much fell in love with open space technology and even felt I understood a lot of it. I'm going to mention this because this is what we're having a conversation at the Open Space Institute is inviting the generations because we want to invite the wisdom of the elders and we want to encourage the new people coming in to do this work and to keep us all feeling love for each other and not upset. Oh, Daddy, why did grandma make me tell me to cut the ham into a small plate? Like, oh, that's because we had a small oven. But there's so many things that we need to be in love with each other and communication with each other that the elders understand a lot of these concepts and they're also coming from their time and the traditions of their time that don't always apply for the moment. And how do we give the space for to the young folks to take the lead, passing as I'm passing into um, the age where I'm going to need to pass on the baton, and other people need to take it. So that's what we're hoping to open space for. And I know this is not everyone will resonate with this, but in the movie Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi tells Darth Vader, if you kill me now, strike me down, I'll be more powerful than you can ever imagine. Right? I mean, that's like a classic scene in the Star Wars movies. Well, there's a spiritual truth in that. In the Baha'i faith, we believe that this life that we live in now is in comparison to the afterlife, like being in the womb before birth. So our capacities when we leave this world are way beyond what we can even imagine. And we can't really even comprehend what it's like beyond it. And I just have been sensing how much the spirit and the potency of Harrison Owen's spirit, it just seems like it's been unleashed and freed. Um, Even though it's sad to have lost him, uh, I'm just noticing that the strength of his spirit, I think, is more powerful than ever. And it's not just Harrison Owen. Um, a lot of people, this is kind of esoteric in some ways, but I think it's going to become more common knowledge. Anne Stadler passed away just a little bit before Harrison, and her spirit has also been unleashed. And there's a lot of powerful women. We wouldn't have open space technology were it not for these powerful women that, sadly or largely have been in the background. And you've interviewed a few of them.
More to come.
And more to come. That voice is so critical. The voice of the elder, the women elders. And I saw that being unleashed a bit, not just for the elders, but for women in general in Istanbul. They had the witch circle in the center of
Yeah.
the event. I did not participate, but I saw it, and I'm like, whoa, uh, watch out.
So, talking about spirits, I think I invited you because I think your spirit is having impact now and will have impact later. And in our introduction before the podcast, you mentioned that you're some way conflicted about next steps. Am I right?
Oh, yes. So the conflicts they're not new. I mentioned that I saw conflicts out there since my work at Xerox and the Palo Alto Research Center in the software field. I saw these conflicts. I would say it became evident to me that there was a lot of finger pointing, and the people in the programming world were pointing at the salespeople, and that those people are jerks. And I could tell that people in sales were like pointing at the programmers, like, "Oh, these people are dumb. They don't really get it." I was seeing leadership coming up and telling us how we were supposed to do anything, and they didn't seem to have a clue. So it's really clear that we weren't all working together at all. And that was clearly part of the problem. And when I encountered the Rainbow Gathering in 1996, I was like, oh my gosh, so many answers here. And after my experience at the Rainbow Gathering, and not necessarily seeing the connection, I uh, learned about the Agile movement in the software field. And the Agile movement has deep, deeply embedded open space technology concepts in its foundations. And I found out this is esoteric as well, but I'm pretty convinced that the people that helped bring us the agile movement in the software industry came together through open space, formal open space technology. This is kind of also esoteric knowledge, which I think is embedded in all the religions, the religions and spirituality of the world. It's like as above, so below. The kingdom of heaven is within. So are the problems. And it's in my own psyche and in my own generational development from my ancestors that I inherit a lot of the conflicts that I see out there. And one of the spiritual concepts I believe is really important is we teach that which we need to learn the most. Open space technology has a principle is whatever happens is the only thing that could have, which is like a really deep surrendering to the value of what is and what was and what is to come. Deep, deep surrendering. Well, I've worked really hard to become a facilitator. Open space helped me get there and get to a point where I was doing consulting work and flying around like every week from Montana to Chicago, New Jersey, Omaha, Nebraska, Berlin, and I was flying all over the place, going to conferences, working with software teams and leadership, making more money than I'd ever made before, bringing in open space technology when I could, and certainly doing my work to try and do that, do the personal work. And it always felt inadequate, and I didn't want to tell people how to do things, but I also noticed that people seem really stuck in their ways, and it was very slow to try and do the kind of work that would encourage something better. And I won't talk about the specific companies that I was working for, but I would say that this is probably largely true in all the large corporations. So someone told the top consultant that the bullet that was fired that would kill him has already been fired. The bullet just hasn't reached him yet. It probably took a few years, but eventually he got taken out. And I would tell some of the programmers that I was supporting that a lot of my work was dodging bullets. It felt very hostile, like warfare, and I could tell that was the case. But I'll tell you, I don't think I really understood the depth of the shadow and the darkness out there or in me until COVID came in 2020, well, over 4 years ago now. That gave me a lot of space because I was no longer working. My contract had ended, and I was glad it had ended. And I had time to do a lot of research and study. And oh my goodness, what I found out just it was certainly a rabbit hole like the Lewis Carroll wrote about in Alice in Wonderland. The deeper you go, the more there's there. And it's an inside out, upside down world, unbelievable. My wife and I were on that journey together, going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I managed to get some remote work during the COVID lockdowns and where we weren't working in person. But I continued to learn, and I came to this place before my wife passed away. It's like I don't want to support that stuff anymore. I don't want to compromise and support stuff that's basically charging all of the planet to destroy itself. And it like, oh my goodness, that's exactly what I was supporting, even though I was trying to convince myself I'm doing and helping the good. So that's where my conflict is. So I'm not really eager to jump back into consulting and the well-paid work I was doing. and trying to determine what it is, what the heck is it that I'm called to do. I still feel that calling in open space, and Istanbul actually started opening doors where I felt what happened in Istanbul was so profound. Seeing the people that bridge Asia and Europe really integrating quickly the concepts, and the most powerful thing that happened there, the world open space and open space returning to the place where open space came from in Africa. For the first time, I mean, they had been talking about when is the world open space and open space going to be in Africa back at my first WOSINOS in Berlin in 2010. They had been talking about that for a very long time. And wow, it just happened.
Yeah.
The year that Harrison Owen passed away.
Yeah.
I don't think that's any accident. I believe from people I've spoken to that the World Open Space and Open Space will be mostly people from Africa, and it's going to be the largest World Open Space and Open Space ever.
Cool. Looking forward.
Feeling that in my bones.
When you're reflecting or contemplating on what now, what comes up?
I still don't know, but I will say that I do have some plans. This is something I've been working on for quite some time. I have written some software for it to facilitate the work of family constellations. And I see a lot of parallels from the work of family constellations and that of open space technology. They are both built on wisdom that comes out of Africa. Bert Hellinger, who came up with family constellations work, was inspired from having seen the deep, deep connection to ancestral wisdom in the Zulu community. The people in the Zulu community, they just can rattle off, if you just talk to them, like seven generations of their ancestry. They just know it and they live with it. It's in their consciousness and awareness. And I have in my work in family constellations, we're basically looking at ancestral issues that get recreated, and these are in our cellular memory, and they come out in a circle. People feel it, and the family constellations work is very self-organized. It doesn't only apply to families, but families are the systems that we all share in common, every human being. The nature of corporations are and other systems don't have the potency of a family system because these are created by humans. The families, they're not just in people's heads, right? They're biological.
Flesh and blood. Yeah.
Flesh and blood, exactly. And we can't choose to not have the mother and father that birthed us. That's not a choice. The place that Harrison Owen's teachings were pushed forward was through the publisher Barrett Kohler, and that is also the publisher for Bert Hellinger's work. Barrett Kohler, same publisher. And interestingly, Bert Hellinger also refused to turn family constellations work into a certification factory where he could make money by printing out more systemic constellation or family constellation facilitators. So it's a field free and open to all. So that you asked where I'm going, and I dedicated 3 years for an intensive study of family constellations work with one of the top family constellation trainers, Brigitte Staab, and I'm going to be training in 2025 with one of the top family constellation facilitators, another top one, Francesca Mason Boring, and I have written some software that can be used for online facilitation of family constellations work. That may be something that will be a part of how I interact. I'm on a path of discovery right now. I'm not quite sure. I'm also curious about artificial intelligence. I'm not really excited about artificial intelligence. There's a lot to be careful about. What I'm noticing that feels deeply true that I've heard from a few people who are experts in artificial intelligence is that this actually is going to make those who can really stay in contact with their authentic humanness, their human spirit. The existence of artificial intelligence is going to amplify the strength and the level of thriving of people who can maintain their connection to their spirit. Those who can't, I'm afraid that they're likely going to just become consumed by the machine, because if you don't have that deep connection, you might as well be a robot. And well, there'll be plenty of robots that are going to compete with you, and I'm afraid you're not going to compete with the robots if you try to be a robot. You can only be of value as your authentic human self. That's going to be something that we need to be aware of. So one of the things that I think it's important we benefit from the wisdom of the ancestors, but not be stuck in traditions. One of the divine masters, Jesus, Yeshua, the carpenter, he said we need to be as wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So important that people, as they get deeper in contact to their own humanity, are aware of the serpents running around and have the wisdom that some of these serpents have that are operating out of fear, so that we can overcome the serpent in our own psyche. That's the issue, really.
Yeah.
Because the best teachers have said that the evil isn't out there. It's not the Hitler out there that we have to worry about. It's the Hitler in our own heart. One of the deep inspirations I've had during this COVID period is reading from Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and he was deeply thankful in many ways to the people that, like Stalin, that built the Gulag, because it helped him come to these spiritual truths and recognition that it's the darkness. The darkness is in all of our hearts, and that's for each of us to overcome. And this whole amazing, incredible universe that we're in is perfect for us and our training to evolve our soul. And I find open space technology and these kinds of concepts and principles are one of the best ways for us to take responsibility for our own path in our evolution, and to take responsibility for who we associate with, who we learn from, where we are. And that's a formal part of the rules of open space.
I think this is a very nice reflection on your story. Is there anything else you would like to add or to share?
I would love for those that are inspired by anything that we are talking about, or that you have spoken with your other guests, to come to the World Open Space on Open Space in Africa if they have the means. If they feel the calling but don't have the means, don't let that get in the way. Reach out. There are people that might want to be eager to actually sponsor you to come. It'll probably be in the fall of 2020. But in the meantime, you don't need to spend anything. It's free and available. We are going to have an online open space that is something, will be the first one that Harrison Owen hasn't actually attended, in January, before the Martin Luther King holiday in the United States. That'll be the 17th, 18th, and 19th. OSIUS.org.
Okay. Thank you, Harold. It was an honor listening to your story and experiences. Thank you for listening. A new episode will be posted every week with new exciting stories on how to create a level playing field for collaboration. I hope you will be back. Together we can make a difference in the world.